Are the culture wars dividing us? That is something that I've been wondering about. I mean, whether you're woke or anti woke, pro pronouns, anti pronouns, pro trans, anti trans, man, all these conversations. Don't you feel like, for the most part, all they're doing is getting us fighting, dividing each other, dividing ourselves into groups, and keeping us from solving and talking about some pretty important issues that affect us all, like housing, healthcare, mental health, things that affect us all, things that we could maybe be talking about and trying to solve together, crime, prisons. Meanwhile, here we are in the mud, slinging mud at each other, and dividing each other into sports teams. And I think that's kind of what the culture wars have become. Us against them against us. And I don't know that it does anything all that spectacular. And I'm not saying that these issues have zero bearing, zero consequences, should not be talked about at all. But don't you feel like that's all anybody ever talks about anymore? Certainly on social media, that seems to be the case. It's like all of our focus goes towards these things, and almost none of our focus goes towards these other things that affects us, I would say, a lot more. And they're just kind of stances that people put in their bios and put in as sort of these hardcore positions, and they draw these lines in the sand. And there's very rarely any kind of middle ground or negotiation on any of these things. Whereas these other topics that I mentioned, I think there is a lot of room for nuance and negotiation. And they're far less divisive in that way because I think we can talk through them and find some common ground versus, the idea of whether one has a pronoun in their bio doesn't, not so much. And people often will refuse to talk to each other on that basis, or whether they call each other woke or they call themselves anti woke. I mean, those are the things that stop conversations. Those are the things that divide us into categories of humans. And in a way, they erase our humanity. So I think this kind of culture war, I think it has to end. I mean, I hate the idea that there is a culture war. There shouldn't be a war. We should be able to discuss these topics and any other topics, and not to the exclusion of so many other important issues. But this hyper focus that we have on, I don't know, Dylan Mulvaney and what pronoun you should use, whatever. I don't care which group you're in. I really don't. If that's all you have to talk about, frankly, I'm finding that rather boring. And if you're only talking to whoever shares your exact category of values, don't you find that a little bit boring? Don't you want to step out and, talk to people who maybe don't share your exact sentiments? I know it feels safe. It does. I get it. You don't want to be attacked. You don't want to be judged. There is a safety to that. You want to identify yourself with whatever flag you want to use, or you want to identify yourself with a MAGA. I get it. Other people will block you or choose not to talk to you. And then you know that the ones that do, they're kind of safe. I get that too. I get it. But life is not safe. And sometimes having conversations with people that are maybe less safe will surprise you. And sometimes they will hurt you. They will. But that is part of life. And you know what? If we care about any of these other issues, we can't rely on just whatever your in group is for these changes to happen. I think we have to get other people involved. We have to appeal to other individuals. We have to explain our positions. We have to, I this dirty word, the C word, compromise. We do. You won't get your perfect utopia of whatever ideal you espouse or aspire to. You're going to have to compromise a little bit, maybe even a lot. And maybe you're not 100% correct on whatever it is you think is the right way. And maybe you are. And through conversations and negotiations, we're going to find maybe a better path. And maybe we'll go on a slightly wrong path for a little while before we get on a better path. But you can't stay within your box forever. I don't think that's such a healthy thing for our society. And you can't continue to wage this war that just separates us, because you know what wars have? They have casualties. And the casualties are going to be people, and the casualties are going to be ideas and causes and good ideas. Some bad ideas, maybe too, but you're going to have casualties. And I don't know, do you really want to be in a war, permanent state of war with your fellow man? I don't know. It just doesn't sound like such a great idea to me. And I just think it's just a tactic to further divide us. And I don't know if this tactic is intentional. I'm not saying that it is. I think we humans are perfectly capable of creating traps for ourselves and setting them up and falling into them. But I think we can also be a little bit smarter than that, and we can climb out of these traps. And I hope we do. And I don't want to engage in wars with people. I want to find better ways out. I want to find solutions. I want to talk. I want to have conversations. And I want to enjoy culture. I don't want to be at war with it. And those are my thoughts.